We have not rehearsed our conversation at all. They don't know what questions I'm going to be asking them.
For the first time, probably since 1968, people kind of are looking at, well, what do we need to do? Well, or why do we have to change things? And if you think about it from that perspective, how many things that we were talking about in 1964 are still being discussed today?
One of the things I'd like to share is that this is all reaching its height right now because somebody had a cell phone. A lot of what is happening has been happening for years, but there was no one in a position to be able to capture the moment, to be able to share the moment, and to put it in front of everyone who's in denial that could possibly exist.
In the world of real estate, obviously there are exceptions, but what I have observed in the time I've gotten to spend in the Black real estate community is I have seen in general that my Black colleagues are often working twice as hard on deals that are twice as complicated so they can make half the money or less.
You then add the property value. Well, we already know anywhere with 51% or more Black people live, the value is inherently racist, systematically, devalued. So when you take that into consideration, now you have folks who have to cultivate relationships with clients. You have to make sure that from a proprietary standpoint, that you find a lender who's willing to give them the best terms and fair terms for the same type of a property that if you sold this same deal on the north side of Chicago, you would get 2.5 times the amount of commission based on home value that you make in the predominantly Black neighborhood.
Give me an example that comes to mind of a time where you have been cost business or been put at a disadvantage because you showed up and it turns out when you showed up for something, you showed up Black.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share. This is one that I don't think I'll ever really get over, and it really happened more than once. And making the appointment is one thing. Having a customer, client, whether white or non-white, didn't make a difference. But when I showed up at the door and knocked on the door, and the owner opened the door and said, "They're allowed in, but you're not." Okay, so I turned to my clients and said, "Do you want to go in?" And they said, "If we cannot go in with you, we will not go in." This was a house that everything they wanted matched. Everything they wanted. So, and they were a white couple with me, and we had to walk away. Reporting it to the listing agent, and she says, "Oh, well, that was the owner's decision." That is not pro standards answer, right? Absolutely not. But that's the position that they decided to take. That has happened multiple times just over a few years. It wasn't like back to back, but over years that has happened. So yeah, it has cost. And I don't know if it cost me more in embarrassment or in money in my pocket.
But I get it, like you said, mostly in the higher price point when you go to a listing in an area that maybe the seller is showing, and that may not be Black, and your clients are Black, and they proceed to ask them a series of questions. My clients are somewhat like me, so because it's funny, especially when you have no idea who they are and what they do, but they will ask a series of questions over and over again, and then you get that agent a call and said, "Hey," I'm like, "Remember that pre-approval that I already sent before I even came to the listing? So you already knew that they could afford it. So why are we asking all these questions?" So are we fair housing? What's that line? But a lot of realtors are taking on that of their. I usually have clients that are somewhat like me from a personality standpoint, but you get like in a higher price point. Well, I wouldn't say higher, 500 and over. You may get the series of questions that your client and your clients are like, "What are they asking me that for?" So, are these common? Because then that confuses your clients, and they're like, "Are they supposed to ask these questions?" I'm like, no, and they already know. We know why they're asking.
What would your final thoughts to the committee be with regard to any opportunities to go from being not racist to potentially expanding the scope in the spirit of being more vociferously anti-racist?
So if they're if we don't have the teeth that says, like, for example, the code says that if you're not doing a real estate transaction, if you make something a racist comment, then the perception is that it's okay. And I think it's now time for us to, as Realtors United, it's time for us to say enough is enough, and we have to stop saying, well, I don't want to get involved. We have to make the changes necessary to move things forward in the right direction.
This is a start, and I think it's going to start here with this committee, with the change in the codes, as what Zeke just said. So I'm looking forward to seeing this committee come up with some great ideas on how we can make change for all members, so we will not be considered racist in this association.
I think it's becoming more impactful right now because people are able to put a face to what they hear. I think that people knew or kind of felt like, there is a little bit of disparity, or maybe there is none. But hearing it now with people that they know, I think is making everyone feel uncomfortable that some of these things are even being talked about today.
The idea that our Black brothers and sisters in our profession would be dehumanized in that manner in the course of doing their job is absolutely appalling, and it can't be easy to talk about.
So what I wanted to say is just look at this year as a sign of hopefulness. There's an old saying, when you know better, you do better. And so it's about relationships, and the relationships that we are putting together that allow us to be able to speak, and for others to say, well, now going forward, I know that I have to do something.